And welcome back, everyone, to the Pokemon Team Creation Series. From Nathan, we have the question of what is Black Noir's Pokemon team? So it's interesting because I think every member of the 7 I could probably do a variation on a Pokemon team for. But Black Noir is actually the most difficult one to do a Pokemon team for, because whether I'm going with the show or whether I'm going with the comic, there isn't a lot to go off of with him. He's the combat specialist of the group. He's kind of the Batman knockoff. But in the comics, he's actually a clone of Homelander. So do I just make an inverse version of his team? Like, what? He has his real powers just enhance physicality, regeneration, all that. And he gets murked, and he also hallucinates cartoon characters. So what exactly do I do? And then I thought, well, okay, wait. Let's kind of meld this. Yes, I'm using this image, the TV series image of him, but let's think of it as in the opposite way. Let's look at it as the comic equivalent of this. He was designed to be the last countermeasure to stop Homelander if he had to. He was a clone of Homelander. So what if instead I designed a team for him that was a team designed to take down Homelander's team from my Homelander video? I'll provide a link in the description for that video if you've never watched that video. But yeah, what if his team is specifically designed to counter Homelander's team to take him down? So I thought, okay, let's go with that. And I'll name off each member of the team if you haven't watched that video. If you haven't watched that video and you don't want to be spoiled on his team, watch the video first, then come back. All right? I'll give you 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Alolan Golem, I think, was the first one to go with, because it's an electric rock type, which would be the perfect counter to take down the Braviary on his team. Both the rock and the electric type would be perfect with that. And unfortunately, the only weakness to normal is fighting, and unfortunately, the flying counters that. So I didn't want to go with that. Then, next on the team would be his Incineroar. Now, we're going to get back to Incineroar in a little bit, but I went with Paldean Tauros. Paldean Tauros, the water variant of it, the water breed. The water to deal with the fire type of Incineroar, the fighting to deal with the dark type of Incineroar. And then, to further the point, to deal with Homelander's Milk Tank, I decided to go with another Paldean Tauros, but this time just the standard variation. And what also works, and I didn't even realize this till after the fact, it works with these, is they're also black, which go with Black Noir's costume. Now, Homelander also has an Orthworm on his team. Now, why did I go with Orthworm? Because I think that, like, Vought, if the Pokemon company of Vought, whatever they are in this case, would want him to have a Pokemon that's powerful, but also kind of looks very goofy and friendly to the crowd. So that's why I went with Orthworm. It would have been basically mandated to him by the company. So to counter Orthworm, I went with Houndoom, which again, black Pokemon, goes with Noir's motif. And I didn't even realize it, but the bulk of the Pokemon on this team all of them have black in them. Then I went with, to deal with his Tyranitar, I need a fighting type. I went with Urshifu's Single Strike, or the dark type variation. Again, it's black. It's a martial arts master, which is what at least the show version of Black Noir is. And it's a legendary, which means it's actually stronger than a pseudo-legendary, so it's perfect for taking down Tyranitar. The last one on the team to deal with, though, was the Genesect, and ultimately I need a fire type. And ironically, to mimic Homelander somewhat, he also has an Incineroar. This would make sense as they are both one's copy of the other. So for them to have at least some crossover on the team would make some sense. So how balanced is this team? I mean, it's fairly balanced, but it's got some big weaknesses. It's 3 times weak to ground, water, flying, fairy, psychic, 2 times weak to grass, and 4 times weak to fighting. But on the flip side, you've got a 3 times 2 strength against fire, times 3 strength against bug, psychic, normal, dark, rock. I think I wrote rock twice by mistake. Rock, and bug, and a 5 times strength against steel, and this entire team sweeps ice type teams. So you're good there. But what about the actual games themselves? Could you be champion of any region? And the irony is, there are a couple of regions you could become champion if you could get to the champion. The problem just comes right out to most of these regions you wouldn't even get past the first gym just because a Alolan Geodude is going to be getting its teeth kicked in. Starting with Kanto, you wouldn't even get past Brock because Brock is a rock and ground trainer. Like Geodude's a rock ground type, and Onix is a rock type. Okay, I believe it's a rock ground type as well. So no electric type moves aren't going to do anything, and Rock is just kind of neutral to each other. And he's got more Pokemon than you, so I don't think you could get past Brock just outright. But let's just say hypothetically you did. If you could, well, yeah, you'd actually beat Blue pretty easily. You'd handle the Pidgeot fine, swap in for any Darkmon to deal with the Alakazam. Probably go with Urshifu because that then immediately takes down the Rhydon. And it doesn't freaking matter if he has a Gyarados or Blastoise. Alola Golem will take both of them down pretty quick. Mind you, if it's outsped, it could go down, but you should be okay. So no, the problem is you just can't beat Brock, I think. I also don't think you would beat Roxanne. You wouldn't beat Rorik. And you won't outright beat Milo either. That's just because of typing disadvantages and, once again, more Pokemon on their teams. In those regions, though, could you beat the champions? Steven? Yeah, actually, you'd have a pretty easy time with Steven. You got 2 fire types, 3 fighting types. You'd be able to handle his team no problem. Sinnoh, Cynthia is a tough one because that Gastrodon alone can wipe out the vast majority of this team. And you still got to deal with the Spiritomb, which you don't have a proper answer for. The Roserade's the one mon on the team that you'll be able to just take out no problem. But my Milotic, you don't have a good answer for. You more or less have an answer to Lucario, but not to Garchomp. And that's assuming you have even a decent amount of mon left. Because, again, the Gastrodon and the Milotic are problematic for this team. So, honestly, I don't think you would. What about in Galar? Surprisingly, yes. Because this team, for a change, is not a team that Dragapult can sweep. Mind you, you do have to get through the Aegislash, which may very well take down the Golem. But you could just switch into either fire type you have. It'd be risky, but you could do it. My guess is you might lose the Golem. Let's just say you lose the Golem, but then you take it out with a fire move. Well, then he goes into Dragapult, which both the Flamethrower and the Shadow Ball are going to be resisted by whatever Firemon you throw out because they're both Dark types. The Thunderbolt would hurt. Straight out, the Thunderbolt would hurt. But because you're Dark type, you should, especially Incineroar, you should hopefully have like Lariat or whatever to deal enough damage to take it out in one shot, or at least do a significant amount of damage. And then it's all going to be dependent on what the team is. Because, unfortunately, Charizard kind of is able to go toe-to-toe with the remainder of this team without difficulty. It's flying typing makes it resistant to the fighting type. There's only one water type left on the team, assuming it's still around. Because if it's... Oh, sorry, forgot the Haxorus. That Haxorus would be problematic as well. You don't have an answer for the Haxorus outright. And then you got to deal with either Mr. Rhyme. I think that one is, if I remember correctly, I think that one is in Cinderace, I think, that team. So Mr. Rhyme, you take down no problem. The Cinderace, because Golem's gone, you would maybe have a little problem, but you got the Paldean Taurus, and then you got to fight the Charizard. So there's a good shot you could. Good shot, though, you're losing a minimum half your team, though. What about the Rhyperior? And I think that one is the Inteleon. Again, Rhyperior, you can just quad or take it out with a fighting type move. The Inteleon, that one might actually be a little problematic. It can take down both the Incineroar and the Houndoom, so that's an issue. But it's frail, so deal with it as you will. And then it's the Seismitoad and the Rillaboom. And that's the combo that's the most difficult. The Rillaboom, not so much, so long as you have a fire type, but the Seismitoad, that one might cause some problems. Either way, though, I'd say it's at least a hard maybe you could beat them. But those are the ones you guaranteed couldn't get past the first gym. Well, what about later on? Could you get past any of the other gyms? In Johto, you could definitely get past the first gym. In fact, the real struggle when it comes to later in the game when you have to deal with Claire and you just don't have a firm answer. Yeah, she's got a Gyarados. That one can be dealt with. But the Dragonaires and the Kingdra, not so much. You're just going to have to pray you can outmuscle her, which is not impossible with this team. Bruno, because of his fighting types, might be somewhat problematic. And Lance, quite frankly, honestly, his first half of his team really isn't that problematic. Although, because of Gyarados coming out with Intimidate, Golem would be weakened, and Golem is not very fast. If a water move hits this thing, it's done. If the Golem goes down before taking out at least a giant chunk of the first half of the team, basically taking out the non-Dragonites, then I don't think you're going to stand a very good shot. If you can take out the Charizard, Aerodactyl, and the Gyarados, the Dragonites still aren't going to be easy, but they'll definitely be easier to deal with the remaining team. But the problem here is just that you have 3 fighting types. So your fighting type moves are just not going to be any good against this team. I'll give it a firm maybe. In Unova, you quite frankly wouldn't get the way I'm going to start working Unova now is with the first gym in black and white, not black and white too, mind you, but in black and white, is if you can beat 2 out of 3 of the brothers, I'm going to call that a pass, which Alolan Golem should be able to do that. A good Geodude should be able to do that. Might not beat the Pan Sage, but it should be able to do that. But yeah, it's but even beyond that though, could you make it through the remainder of the region? And honestly, I didn't actually finish Unova, so I'm doing this right out the gate. But the answer most likely is yes. You probably wouldn't struggle all that hard throughout most of the region. Say when you get the Elite Four and you got to deal with Marshall, who would really hurt this team. The problem just is that the 2 Mon that aren't directly weak to fighting types aren't strong against fighting types either. So you might just stop at Marshall. But if you did somehow beat the game and then get to Alder, you have a perfect team to deal with Alder. Because half of Alder's team are strong bugs, and one of them is straight out weak to fire, the other straight out weak to rock. So switch out the Golem. That way you have an answer for the Volcarona, and you'll be fine. And then the rest of his team is mostly weak to fighting. So that's fine. But what about in Black and White 2, where you start with Chirin, which you should be able to do fine. Then you with Roxy, again, should be fine. Berg is about the same, although you do... Those two would struggle, the Tauros, just because of the fighting type. But Alolan Golem should kind of carry that. Or actually, I think it'd be a Graveler at that point. Actually, no, because you trade evolution, yeah, it should be a Golem at that point. Lisa, again, shouldn't be that big. The Amogas are problematic, admittedly. But you should be okay. And then, really, there's not much else changing here. Again, though, you still got to deal with Marshall, and I think you might stop there. If you don't stop there, you do have fighting answers for the Hydreigon, for the Aggron, the Haxorus. If that thing gets a Dragon's Dance off, you're in a lot of trouble. But you have a lot of answers for the remainder of your team, so I'm gonna say it's a good solid maybe. I'm gonna lean towards the majority. Yes, you would win. Kalos, I think you kind of stop at Karina, sadly. And this just comes down to the fact that Hawlucha is going to take down both the Tauroses. Even because you're only at your 3rd gym. Both the Tauros is on its own. And the other fighting types are almost certainly going to take the Golem down. So, yeah, I just don't think it's likely to get past her. But if you did get past her and got all the way to Diantha, you'd probably beat her without too much problem. And then it just comes down to, could you beat Paldea? And that's just a fight and a half all the way. Especially because Geodude's not that fast, and that Nimble has double kick. And I'm not going to lie, that Nimble alone might take down the Geodude. It might. Because otherwise, if you can beat the Nimble, she doesn't have an attack that can really do anything against you. But then, even if you beat her, you got to deal with Brassius, who's going to be strong against both of these Mon. You then got to deal with Iono, who that one's not going to be a cakewalk either. There's a lot of struggling here. And then in Elite Four, you got to deal with Riku, who's a ground-type trainer and has a lot of resistances to a lot of stuff you have on the team. And then you got to deal with Hasius' dragon typing, which this team's just not that strong against. But if you did get past all of them, which, by the way, it's not a lock that you would lose, you will, in fact, be. I have no, full confidence you'd be able to beat Gita. Gita is an exceptionally weak champion. But this is, in the end, just my opinion. What did you think? What do you think about my design work for this team? How I went about doing it? Do you agree with this, or would you choose Armand to be on his team? Let me know in the comments below. Till then, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, share, subscribe. See you next time.